What if I told you that personal power is not something you're born with, but a skill you can systematically develop and amplify, like building muscle at the gym? That the difference between people who command respect, influence outcomes, and shape their reality versus those who feel powerless, overlooked, and controlled by circumstances isn't privilege, genetics, or luck, but something far more accessible and within your complete control. Most people believe that personal power comes from external sources like money, status, physical strength, or having the right connections. They think that powerful people are just naturally charismatic, born leaders, or lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Unbreakable personal power isn't about dominating others, manipulating situations, or building a false persona of strength. It's about developing an internal foundation of authentic power that radiates from your core, influences every interaction, and allows you to navigate any situation with confidence, clarity, and conviction. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need external validation because your sense of worth, capability, and direction comes from an unshakable internal source. The most influential people throughout history, from Mahatma Gandhi to Eleanor Roosevelt, from Steve Jobs to Maya Angelou, didn't achieve their impact through force or external power structures. They achieved it by cultivating an internal reservoir of personal power so deep and authentic that it naturally influenced everyone around them. They transformed themselves first, and that transformation radiated outward to change the world. Today, you're going to learn the exact system for developing this same unbreakable personal power. By the end of this audiobook, you'll have a complete framework for building internal strength, commanding respect without demanding it, influencing outcomes without manipulation, and creating the kind of presence that naturally attracts opportunities, relationships, and success. You'll understand how to tap into a source of power that no one can take from you because it comes entirely from within. Chapter 1: The Architecture of Personal Power. Understanding what real power actually is. Your understanding of power is probably completely wrong. And until you grasp what genuine personal power actually is, you'll continue chasing external symbols of power while remaining internally weak, dependent on circumstances, and vulnerable to any shift in your external situation. Here's what most people don't realize. Personal power has nothing to do with controlling others and everything to do with controlling yourself. It's not about having power over people. It's about having power over your own thoughts, emotions, decisions, and actions. When you master yourself, you naturally gain influence with others. But when you try to gain influence without self-mastery, you become manipulative, insecure, and ultimately powerless. Dr. Angela Duckworth's groundbreaking research at the University of Pennsylvania revealed that self-control is twice as important as intelligence in predicting success. Her studies with thousands of participants demonstrated that people who can regulate their impulses, manage their emotions, and direct their attention consistently outperform those with higher IQs but lower self-regulation. This is because true power begins with the ability to govern yourself before you can effectively influence anything outside yourself. Think about the most powerful people you've encountered in your life. Not the ones with impressive titles or large bank accounts, but the ones who commanded genuine respect and influenced outcomes through their presence alone. What made them powerful wasn't their external circumstances. It was their internal qualities. They had clarity about who they were and what they stood for. They maintained composure under pressure. They made decisions based on principles rather than emotions. They spoke with conviction because they believed in what they said. They didn't need to prove themselves because their sense of worth came from within. This is the foundation of unbreakable personal power. It's built on 4 core pillars that work together to create an integrated system of strength. The first pillar is self-knowledge, which is your deep understanding of your values, strengths, weaknesses, triggers, patterns, and authentic self. Most people are complete strangers to themselves. They adopt beliefs from others without questioning them. They pursue goals that don't align with their true values. They react to situations based on unconscious programming rather than conscious choice. Self-knowledge means you've done the difficult work of examining yourself honestly. You know what you truly care about versus what you've been told to care about. You understand your natural talents and where you need support. You recognize your emotional triggers and how to manage them. You've identified your authentic voice rather than imitating others. This self-knowledge becomes the foundation of your power because you're operating from truth rather than pretense. You're not trying to be someone you're not, which means you're not wasting energy maintaining a false image. The second pillar is self-regulation, which is your ability to manage your thoughts, emotions, impulses, and behavior regardless of external circumstances. This is perhaps the most visible aspect of personal power. When others are panicking, you remain calm. When others are reactive, you remain thoughtful. When others are controlled by their emotions, you acknowledge your emotions without being controlled by them. Dr. Roy Baumeister's research at Florida State University demonstrated that self-regulation is like a muscle. It can be strengthened through practice, but also becomes depleted through use. The people with the strongest personal power have developed their self-regulation capacity to such a high level that maintaining composure becomes almost effortless. They've trained themselves to pause before responding, to choose their emotional state consciously, and to direct their attention where they want it rather than where circumstances pull it. The third pillar is self-direction, which is your clarity about where you're going and your commitment to that direction, regardless of obstacles, opinions, or setbacks. Powerful people are not easily swayed because they have a clear internal compass guiding their decisions. They know what they're building, why it matters, and what they're willing to sacrifice to achieve it. This doesn't mean being rigid or unable to adapt. It means having a strong sense of purpose that informs your flexibility. You can adjust your strategies while maintaining your direction. You can consider others' perspectives while ultimately trusting your own judgment. You can face uncertainty while maintaining confidence in your ability to navigate it. The fourth pillar is self-expression, which is your ability to communicate your thoughts, needs, boundaries, and vision with clarity and conviction. Many people with good intentions and valuable ideas never develop personal power because they cannot effectively express what's inside them. They speak tentatively, hedge their statements with qualifiers, or suppress their authentic voice to avoid conflict or judgment. Powerful self-expression doesn't mean being loud, aggressive, or dominating conversations. It means speaking your truth clearly, setting boundaries firmly but respectfully, and sharing your ideas with confidence. It means your words align with your beliefs. Your tone matches your message, and your presence supports your communication. These four pillars work synergistically. Self-knowledge tells you who you are. Self-regulation gives you control over your responses. Self-direction provides your purpose and path. Self-expression allows you to share your power with the world. Together, they create a foundation of personal power that cannot be shaken by external circumstances because it comes entirely from within. But here's the critical insight that most people miss. Personal power is not something you achieve and then possess forever. It's something you cultivate daily through specific practices and choices. Just like physical fitness requires ongoing training, personal power requires continuous development. The moment you stop working on these four pillars, your power begins to erode. The good news is that unlike external power, which can be taken away through changes in circumstances, job loss, market crashes, or other people's decisions, your personal power can only be diminished by your own choices. No one can take away your self-knowledge, self-regulation, self-direction, or self-expression unless you allow them to. This is what makes it unbreakable. Once you develop it, it's yours permanently as long as you continue to maintain and strengthen it. Chapter 2. The Sovereignty Shift. Reclaiming power from external validation. The greatest obstacle to developing unbreakable personal power is the unconscious habit of giving your power away to external sources. Every time you seek validation from others, you transfer power to them. Every time you allow someone else's opinion to determine your worth, you surrender power. Every time you need permission, approval, or reassurance before taking action, you're operating from a place of external dependence rather than internal strength. This isn't about arrogance or refusing to consider others' perspectives. It's about recognizing that your fundamental sense of worth, capability, and direction must come from within. External feedback can inform your decisions, but it cannot determine your value. Other people's opinions can provide useful data, but they cannot define your identity. Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion at the University of Texas reveals a profound truth about personal power. People who base their self-worth on external validation are constantly vulnerable. They experience more anxiety, depression, and fear of failure because their sense of okayness depends on factors outside their control. But people who develop internal validation through self-compassion maintain stable self-worth regardless of external circumstances. They're not devastated by criticism because they don't need others' approval to feel worthwhile. They're not paralyzed by failure because they don't equate their performance with their value as a person. The sovereignty shift is the transformation from external validation to internal validation. It's the moment you realize that you are the ultimate authority on your own worth, direction, and choices. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process of reclaiming power you've been unconsciously giving away your entire life. The first step is recognizing where you're currently seeking external validation. For most people, this shows up in several common patterns. You constantly check social media for likes, comments, and followers to feel good about yourself. You need others to agree with your decisions before you feel confident about them. You struggle to make choices without consulting multiple people. You feel crushed by criticism, even when it comes from people you don't respect. You change your behavior, opinions, or appearance based on what you think others expect. You need constant reassurance that you're doing okay, that people like you, or that you're on the right track. These patterns aren't character flaws. They're learned behaviors from childhood and cultural conditioning. From a young age, most people are trained to seek approval from parents, teachers, and peers. Good behavior is rewarded with praise. Bad behavior is punished with disapproval. Over time, you internalize the belief that your worth depends on others' opinions of you. This external validation system follows you into adulthood, where it becomes a prison that limits your power. The second step is consciously building internal validation systems that replace external dependence. This means developing the ability to evaluate yourself based on your own standards rather than others' judgments. You create clear personal values that define what matters to you. Then you measure your success based on alignment with these values rather than comparison with others or achievement of external markers. For example, if one of your core values is authenticity, you evaluate your success based on whether you expressed yourself honestly in interactions, not on whether people liked what you said. If one of your values is growth, you measure progress by what you learned and how you improved, not by whether you achieved perfect performance. This internal scorecard gives you power because you're no longer dependent on external factors you cannot control. The third step is developing what psychologists call differentiation, which is the ability to maintain your sense of self while in close relationship with others. Differentiation means you can be emotionally connected to people without being emotionally controlled by them. You can care about others' feelings without making their feelings your responsibility. You can consider others' perspectives without abandoning your own. People with low differentiation say things like, "I can't be happy if my partner is unhappy," or "I need everyone to like me," or "I have to make this decision based on what my family expects." They've lost the boundary between themselves and others, which means they've given away their power. People with high differentiation say things like, "I care about your feelings, and I'm making this choice based on my values," or "I value your opinion, and I trust my own judgment," or "I want your approval, and I don't need it to move forward." They maintain connection while preserving sovereignty. The fourth step is practicing boundary setting, which is one of the most powerful expressions of personal power. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They're clear definitions of what's acceptable and unacceptable in how others treat you, what you will and won't do, and how you choose to spend your time and energy. People without boundaries give their power away constantly by allowing others to disrespect them, take advantage of them, or pressure them into choices that don't align with their values. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first because it often triggers others' displeasure. When you stop accommodating unreasonable requests, some people will be upset. When you start saying no to things that don't serve you, some people will criticize you for being selfish. This discomfort is precisely why most people avoid boundaries and remain powerless. They're more afraid of others' temporary disapproval than their own long-term loss of power. But here's what happens when you consistently set and maintain boundaries. Initially, some people push back or pull away. This is actually positive because it reveals who respected you versus who was taking advantage of your lack of boundaries. Over time, people learn to respect your boundaries. They stop making unreasonable requests because they know you'll decline. They treat you differently because you've trained them to treat you according to your standards. Most importantly, you feel more powerful because you're living according to your own terms, rather than constantly accommodating others' demands. The fifth step is eliminating approval-seeking language and behavior from your communication. Pay attention to how often you hedge your statements with qualifiers like, "This might be a stupid idea, but," or "I'm not sure if this is right, but," or "Does that make sense?" These phrases unconsciously signal that you're seeking approval or permission to have your opinion. They diminish your power by suggesting you don't fully believe in what you're saying. Powerful communicators state their thoughts clearly and directly. Instead of saying, "I was wondering if maybe we could possibly try this approach," they say, "I recommend we try this approach." Instead of asking, "Is it okay if I share my perspective?" they simply share their perspective. This doesn't mean being rigid or dismissive of others. It means communicating from a place of internal authority rather than external dependence. The sixth step is developing the courage to disappoint people. This might sound harsh, but it's essential for personal power. You cannot simultaneously please everyone and live authentically. You cannot accommodate every request and maintain your boundaries. You cannot seek universal approval and stay true to your values. At some point, your authentic choices will disappoint someone. Your boundaries will upset someone. Your decisions will conflict with someone's preferences. The people with the strongest personal power have made peace with this reality. They've accepted that disappointing others is sometimes the cost of honoring themselves. They've realized that trying to make everyone happy is impossible, and that attempting it means abandoning their own needs, values, and direction. They choose to be respected over being liked. They choose authenticity over acceptance. They choose sovereignty over approval. The sovereignty shift is perhaps the most challenging aspect of developing unbreakable personal power because it requires going against years of conditioning and risking others' disapproval. But it's also the most liberating transformation you'll ever experience. When you no longer need external validation to feel worthy, capable, and confident, you become truly free. Your power becomes unbreakable because it comes entirely from within, and no external circumstance can take it away. Chapter 3. The Presence Principles: Developing Magnetic Personal Energy. Personal power is not just an internal experience, it's something others can feel when they're around you. This invisible quality is often called presence, and it's what separates people who command respect and attention from those who get overlooked and underestimated. Presence is the external manifestation of your internal power, and it can be systematically developed through specific principles and practices. Dr. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard Business School demonstrates that presence significantly impacts how others perceive and respond to you. In her studies, people who exhibited strong presence were rated as more competent, trustworthy, and influential even when their actual credentials were identical to those with weaker presence. This means that presence directly translates into real-world power because it influences how others treat you, what opportunities they offer you, and how much weight they give your words. But what exactly is presence? It's not about being loud, dominant, or the center of attention. Presence is the quality of being fully engaged in the current moment with grounded confidence and authentic expression. It's when your thoughts, emotions, words, and body language are all aligned and congruent. It's when you're not distracted by anxiety about the future or regrets about the past, but fully here, now, responding to what is. The first presence principle is centered grounding, which is the physical and mental state of being rooted in your body rather than lost in your head. Most people spend their entire lives dissociated from their physical experience, living primarily in their thoughts. This creates a scattered, anxious quality that others can sense. They appear distracted, uncertain, or disconnected. Centered grounding means you're aware of your physical body, your breath, and your contact with the ground. You can feel your feet on the floor. You're breathing deeply into your belly rather than shallowly into your chest. Your awareness is located in your center, roughly 2 inches below your navel, rather than floating around in your head. This physical centering creates a calm, stable quality that others unconsciously respond to with respect and attention. You can develop centered grounding through a simple daily practice. Several times throughout your day, pause and bring your attention to your body. Take 3 deep breaths, feeling the air move all the way down to your belly. Notice the sensation of your feet on the ground. Imagine energy flowing down from your head, through your torso, and into the earth. This takes less than 30 seconds, but creates an immediate shift in your presence. Over time, this centered state becomes your default rather than something you have to consciously create. The second presence principle is energetic expansion, which is the practice of taking up space rather than making yourself small. People without personal power unconsciously contract their energy. They hunch their shoulders, cross their arms, avoid eye contact, and minimize their physical presence. This contraction signals low status and powerlessness, which causes others to unconsciously dismiss or overlook them. Energetic expansion means you allow your energy to fill the space around you. You stand tall with shoulders back and chest open. You make comfortable eye contact. You use hand gestures when you speak. You move through space with confidence rather than apologetically. You sit with an open posture rather than collapsed or crossed. This doesn't mean being aggressive or taking up more space than appropriate. It means claiming the space you deserve without apology. The research on power posing, pioneered by Amy Cuddy, shows that even 2 minutes of standing in an expansive posture increases testosterone, decreases cortisol, and creates feelings of power and confidence. But more importantly, it changes how others perceive and respond to you. When you expand your energy, others unconsciously register you as more powerful and give you more attention, respect, and influence. The third presence principle is vocal authority, which is how you use your voice to convey confidence and conviction. Your voice is one of the most powerful tools for expressing personal power, yet most people use their voice in ways that diminish their influence. They speak too quickly, too quietly, or with an upward inflection that makes statements sound like questions. They fill pauses with filler words like and like. They rush through their thoughts as if apologizing for taking up others' time. Vocal authority means you speak at a measured pace that allows listeners to absorb your words. You project your voice from your diaphragm rather than your throat, giving it deeper resonance and more power. You use downward inflection at the end of statements to convey certainty rather than seeking approval. You embrace pauses between thoughts, which creates emphasis and gives you time to think. You eliminate filler words through conscious practice and comfortable silence. One of the most powerful aspects of vocal authority is learning to slow down. Powerful people speak more slowly than anxious people. They're not rushing to get their words out before someone interrupts. They're not worried that others will lose interest. They trust that what they have to say is worth listening to, so they deliver it with deliberate pacing. When you slow down your speech, something remarkable happens. People lean in and listen more carefully. Your words carry more weight. You feel more confident because you're giving yourself time to think and choose your words carefully. The fourth presence principle is attentional focus, which is your ability to give complete attention to whatever or whoever is in front of you. In an age of constant distraction, the ability to be fully present with another person is becoming rare and therefore increasingly powerful. When you give someone your complete attention, they feel it. They feel valued, respected, and important. This creates a powerful positive association with being around you. Most people don't truly listen during conversations. They're waiting for their turn to talk, thinking about how they'll respond, checking their phone, or distracted by their own thoughts. This divided attention creates a weak presence that others sense as disinterest or low engagement. Attentional focus means you're not planning your response while someone is speaking. You're not glancing at your phone or scanning the room. You're fully engaged with the person in front of you, listening not just to their words, but to their emotion, their body language, and what they're not saying. This level of focus is actually a form of respect and a demonstration of power. You're powerful enough to set aside your own agenda temporarily and give your full attention to another person. You're confident enough to trust that you'll be able to respond appropriately without planning and rehearsing. This creates a magnetic quality that makes people want to be around you, because being truly seen and heard is a rare and valuable experience. The fifth presence principle is emotional congruence, which means your internal emotional state matches your external expression. Incongruence is when you're feeling anxious but pretending to be confident, angry but acting pleasant, or uncertain but projecting certainty. People can sense this mismatch unconsciously, and it creates a feeling of distrust or discomfort. You seem fake, manipulative, or inauthentic. Emotional congruence doesn't mean displaying every emotion you feel inappropriately. It means your external presentation authentically reflects your internal experience in a way that's appropriate to the context. If you're excited about something, you allow that enthusiasm to show. If you're concerned about an issue, you express that concern honestly. If you're confident in a decision, your body language and tone reflect that confidence naturally. The key to emotional congruence is first being aware of what you're actually feeling, rather than what you think you should feel. Many people are so disconnected from their authentic emotions that they don't even know what they're really experiencing. They've learned to suppress, deny, or rationalize their feelings to the point where they're strangers to their own emotional landscape. Developing emotional awareness through practices like journaling, meditation, or therapy allows you to recognize your authentic feelings. Then you can choose how to express them appropriately rather than unconsciously suppressing them, which creates the incongruence that weakens your presence. The sixth presence principle is intentional positioning, which is how you strategically position yourself in physical space to maximize your presence and influence. Where you sit in a meeting, where you stand at a social gathering, how you orient your body in relation to others, all of these choices impact your presence and power. People with strong presence are strategic about positioning. They choose seats that allow them to see everyone and be seen by everyone. They position themselves in central locations rather than corners or edges. They orient their body toward the person they're speaking with, giving full attention through positioning. This isn't about manipulation or playing power games. It's about being thoughtful and intentional, rather than defaulting to unconscious patterns that minimize your presence. Many people unconsciously choose positions that make them less visible, less engaged, and less influential. Then they wonder why others don't seem to notice or value their contributions. Intentional positioning ensures that your physical presence supports, rather than undermines, your personal power. The seventh presence principle is consistent composure, which is maintaining your calm, centered state, regardless of external chaos, pressure, or provocation. This is perhaps the most visible sign of personal power. When others are panicking, you remain calm. When others are reactive, you remain thoughtful. When others are emotionally dysregulated, you remain composed. This consistency signals to everyone around you that you have deep internal resources and cannot be easily shaken. It creates trust because people know you'll remain stable even in difficult circumstances. It creates respect because maintaining composure requires significant self-regulation and strength. Developing consistent composure requires practicing self-regulation techniques until they become automatic. This includes breathing techniques that activate your parasympathetic nervous system, mental reframing that helps you see challenges as manageable rather than catastrophic, and grounding practices that keep you centered in your body rather than lost in anxious thoughts. Over time, composure becomes your default state rather than something you have to work to create. When you master these 7 presence principles, something remarkable happens. You enter a room and people notice. You speak and people listen. You lead and people follow. Not because you're demanding attention or forcing your influence, but because your presence naturally commands respect. Your personal power becomes visible and magnetic, attracting opportunities, relationships, and influence naturally and effortlessly. Chapter 4. The Decision Architecture. Making choices from power instead of fear. Every decision you make either increases or decreases your personal power. The quality of your life is directly determined by the quality of your decisions. Yet most people make choices from a place of fear, confusion, or external pressure rather than internal power. When you learn to make decisions from a foundation of personal power, everything in your life begins to improve because your choices align with your authentic values, long-term vision, and highest potential. Dr. Daniel Kahneman's Nobel Prize-winning research reveals that human decision-making is heavily influenced by cognitive biases, emotional states, and unconscious patterns. His work shows that people often make choices that feel right in the moment, but are objectively poor decisions when evaluated rationally. This is because most decisions are made by what he calls System 1 thinking, which is fast, automatic, and emotional rather than System 2 thinking, which is slow, deliberate, and logical. People without personal power make decisions based on immediate emotional relief, others' expectations, fear of discomfort, or avoiding short-term pain. These decisions might feel right in the moment, but they consistently lead to long-term consequences that diminish power, opportunity, and fulfillment. People with strong personal power make decisions based on their values, long-term vision, principle rather than convenience, and what will serve their highest good even if it's temporarily uncomfortable. The first principle of powerful decision-making is values-based filtering, which means every significant choice is evaluated against your core values before any other consideration. Most people don't have clearly defined values, which means they're making decisions without a compass. They're pulled in different directions by competing desires, others' expectations, and immediate circumstances. This creates inconsistent choices that don't build toward anything meaningful. Defining your core values requires deep reflection. What matters most to you? What principles do you want to guide your life? What do you want to be known for? What would you want said about you at your funeral? Your values might include things like integrity, growth, family, creativity, service, freedom, excellence, or authenticity. Once defined, these values become your decision-making filter. Before making any significant choice, you ask, does this align with my core values? Will this choice honor what matters most to me? This values-based approach creates consistency in your decisions, which builds personal power over time. People trust you because they can predict how you'll behave based on your consistent values. You trust yourself because your choices align with your beliefs. You avoid regret because even difficult decisions feel right when they're aligned with your values. The second principle is future self-consultation, which is the practice of making decisions based on what your future self will thank you for, rather than what your current self wants in this moment. Your current self is often motivated by comfort, immediate gratification, and avoiding discomfort. Your future self cares about long-term consequences, sustained growth, and lasting fulfillment. Before making a decision, imagine yourself 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from now looking back at this choice. What would that future version of you want you to choose today? This perspective shift immediately clarifies many decisions. Your current self might want to avoid a difficult conversation, but your future self will thank you for addressing the issue directly. Your current self might want to take the easy path, but your future self will thank you for taking the challenging path that led to growth. Your current self might want to spend money impulsively, but your future self will thank you for investing or saving. This future self-consultation removes the emotional intensity of the present moment and allows you to see decisions from a longer time horizon. It's one of the most powerful techniques for making choices that build rather than diminish your personal power. The third principle is elimination of false options, which means recognizing when you're considering choices that aren't actually aligned with your power and simply removing them from consideration. Many people agonize over decisions between multiple mediocre options when the real answer is that none of those options serve them. They're choosing between the lesser of two evils rather than holding out for a genuinely good choice. Powerful decision makers are willing to walk away from any option that doesn't meet their standards. They don't accept jobs that compromise their values just because they need employment. They don't stay in relationships that diminish them just because they fear being alone. They don't make decisions based on what's available when what's available isn't good enough. This willingness to reject inadequate options is itself a form of power. It signals to yourself and others that you have standards and won't compromise them for convenience or fear. This doesn't mean being unrealistic or refusing to make any choice until perfect conditions appear. It means distinguishing between acceptable compromises and unacceptable violations of your values or vision. Some flexibility is strategic, But there are certain non-negotiable standards that powerful people refuse to violate regardless of circumstances. The fourth principle is decisive momentum, which is the practice of making decisions efficiently and moving forward with commitment rather than endlessly deliberating, second-guessing, or waiting for perfect certainty. Analysis. Paralysis is a form of powerlessness. When you cannot make decisions without perfect information, you surrender your power to circumstances because you're waiting for external clarity rather than trusting your internal judgment. Powerful people make decisions with incomplete information because they trust their ability to course correct if needed. They understand that making a good decision and moving forward is better than making a perfect decision eventually. They recognize that most decisions are reversible and that speed of implementation often matters more than perfection of choice. They commit fully to their decisions rather than keeping one foot out the door in case they need to retreat. This decisive momentum creates power through action. Every decision followed by committed action builds confidence in your judgment. Every time you trust yourself enough to choose and move forward, you strengthen your sense of personal power. Every time you prove to yourself that you can handle whatever consequences come from your decisions, you become more willing to make bold choices in the future. The fifth principle is principle-based consistency, which means your decisions follow logical principles that you apply consistently rather than changing based on mood, convenience, or social pressure. People without power make inconsistent decisions. They set a boundary one day and violate it the next. They commit to a goal on Monday and abandon it by Friday. They have principles they claim to believe in, but don't actually follow when it's inconvenient. This inconsistency destroys personal power because you cannot trust yourself. If you don't follow through on your own decisions, why would anyone else take your word seriously? If your choices change based on how you feel in the moment, how can you build anything lasting? Principle-based consistency means you establish clear principles for how you make decisions, then follow those principles even when it's difficult. If you have a principle that you don't make important decisions when emotionally dysregulated, you honor that principle even when you're tempted to react immediately. If you have a principle that you invest a certain percentage of your income before spending on wants, you follow that principle even when something attractive comes along. If you have a principle about how you treat people, you apply it consistently, regardless of whether you like the person or how they've treated you. This consistency builds trust with yourself and others. It demonstrates that you're a person of your word, that your principles aren't just concepts, but actual guidelines you follow. It creates a solid foundation of personal power because your decisions become predictable and reliable rather than chaotic and reactive. Chapter 5. The Confidence Construction. Building unshakable self-belief. Through evidence. Confidence is not something you're born with, or something that magically appears when you achieve certain milestones. Confidence is built systematically through accumulating evidence of your capability. It's a skill that can be developed through specific practices that prove to yourself over and over that you can handle challenges, learn new skills, and achieve outcomes you set for yourself. Dr. Albert Bandura's research on self-efficacy at Stanford University reveals that confidence comes primarily from mastery experiences, which are instances where you successfully accomplish something challenging. His studies show that confidence built on genuine achievement is far more durable and powerful than confidence built on positive affirmations, others' encouragement, or imagining success. Real confidence comes from real evidence that you've gathered through your own actions and results. Most people wait to feel confident before taking action. They think confidence comes first, then action follows. But this is backward. Action comes first, which produces results, which creates evidence, which builds confidence. Powerful people understand this sequence. They act despite not feeling confident, accumulate evidence through those actions, and build genuine confidence based on proven capability. The first component of confidence construction is micro-achievement accumulation, which is the practice of setting and accomplishing small challenges consistently to build evidence of your capability. Most people set huge goals, fail to achieve them, and use that failure as evidence that they're not capable. This destroys confidence. The micro-achievement approach works oppositely. You set small, achievable targets that stretch you slightly beyond your current capability, accomplish them consistently, and use that success as evidence that builds confidence. For example, if you want to build confidence in your physical fitness but currently don't exercise, you don't commit to working out 2 hours daily. That's setting yourself up for failure. Instead, you commit to 10 minutes of movement daily. This is challenging enough to mean something, but achievable enough that you can maintain consistency. Every day you complete those 10 minutes, you're gathering evidence. After 30 days, you have 30 pieces of evidence that you can commit to something and follow through. That evidence builds genuine confidence. Once you've established consistency at one level, you increase the challenge slightly. Maybe you move to 15 minutes, or you add a new type of exercise. You continue this pattern of achieving at one level, building evidence and confidence, then stretching to the next level. Over time, you accumulate massive evidence of your capability, which creates unshakable confidence because it's based on real achievement rather than empty affirmations. The second component is skill stacking progression, which is deliberately developing new capabilities in a systematic way that proves to yourself you can learn anything you commit to learning. One of the biggest confidence killers is the belief that you're limited to your current skills and cannot develop new ones. This belief keeps people trapped in their comfort zones, avoiding challenges that would require them to grow. Skill stacking means you regularly choose a new skill to develop, break it down into learnable components, practice deliberately, and achieve measurable improvement. The specific skill matters less than the process of proving to yourself that you can start as a beginner and become competent through focused effort. Maybe you learn a language, a musical instrument, a software program, a sport, or a professional skill. The confidence comes not from the skill itself, but from the meta skill of learning, which proves you're not limited to what you currently know. Each time you successfully develop a new skill, you add evidence to your confidence. Foundation. You prove that growth is possible, that challenges can be overcome, and that your capabilities are not fixed. This evidence transfers to other areas of your life. When you face a new challenge at work, you remember that you've successfully learned difficult things before. When you're intimidated by a situation, you recall that you've moved from incompetence to competence in multiple domains. This accumulated evidence creates confidence that's unshakable because it's based on repeated proof of your learning capacity. The third component is fear-facing exposure, which is systematically exposing yourself to situations that make you uncomfortable and proving that you can handle them. Fear destroys confidence by convincing you that certain situations are dangerous, and that you're not capable of handling them. The only way to build confidence in the face of fear is to face the fear repeatedly and discover that you survive, cope, and often thrive. This doesn't mean recklessly throwing yourself into dangerous situations. It means identifying fears that are holding you back, then gradually exposing yourself to increasingly challenging versions of those fears. If you're afraid of public speaking, you start by speaking in front of one trusted friend, then a small group, then a larger audience. Each exposure that you survive builds evidence that you can handle this fear. Each time you face the fear and don't die, get rejected, or fail catastrophically, you gather proof that your fear was exaggerated. The confidence that comes from fear-facing exposure is particularly powerful because it proves to you that you can do hard things. You can feel afraid and act anyway. You can be uncomfortable and persist. You can face your fears and emerge stronger. This evidence transforms your relationship with fear, from seeing it as a stop sign to seeing it as a growth signal. When you're afraid of something, instead of avoiding it, you recognize it as an opportunity to build confidence by facing it. The fourth component is failure reframing practice, which is learning to see failures not as evidence of inadequacy, but as data for improvement. People with weak confidence are crushed by failure because they interpret it as proof that they're not good enough. People with strong confidence see failure as feedback about what didn't work and information about what to try next. This reframing allows them to attempt challenging things without being paralyzed by fear of failure. Building this reframing capacity requires deliberately practicing a different interpretation of failures when they occur. Instead of asking, "Why am I such a failure?" you ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Instead of concluding, "I'm not good at this," you conclude, "I haven't mastered this yet, and here's what I need to work on." Instead of seeing failure as an ending, you see it as a step in the process. This practice must be deliberate because your brain's default response to failure is self-criticism and shame. You have to consciously interrupt that pattern and replace it with a more empowering interpretation. Over time, this new interpretation becomes automatic. You fail at something, feel momentary disappointment, then automatically shift into learning mode. This resilience in the face of failure is itself a form of confidence. You're confident not because you never fail, but because you know you'll handle failure productively when it happens. The fifth component is evidence journaling, which is the practice of systematically recording your achievements, progress, and moments of capability so you can review them when your confidence wavers. Your brain naturally focuses more on failures and weaknesses than on successes and strengths. This negativity bias means you'll forget your achievements unless you deliberately record and review them. An evidence journal is where you write down every accomplishment, no matter how small. Every time you do something that required courage, skill, or persistence, every piece of positive feedback you receive, every challenge you overcame, every goal you achieved. This creates a tangible record of evidence that you can review when you're doubting yourself. When you're facing a new challenge and feeling inadequate, you open your evidence journal and read through pages of proof that you've successfully handled challenges before. This isn't empty positive thinking. It's reviewing genuine evidence that rebuilds your confidence based on real past achievements. Many powerful people keep evidence journals for years, accumulating hundreds or thousands of entries. This massive collection of proof becomes an unshakable foundation of confidence because it's not based on feeling or opinion. It's based on documented evidence of capability that cannot be denied or dismissed. The sixth component is competence circles expansion, which is the practice of gradually moving beyond your current areas of expertise into new domains where you feel less confident. Confidence built in one narrow area often doesn't transfer to other parts of life. You might feel confident in your professional skills, but not in social situations. You might feel confident physically, but not intellectually. Expanding your competence circles means deliberately developing capability in multiple life domains, so your confidence becomes comprehensive rather than limited. This expansion follows the same micro-achievement pattern. You choose a new area where you currently lack confidence. You start with small, achievable challenges in that domain. You build competence gradually through consistent practice. You accumulate evidence of your capability. As you develop confidence in multiple domains, you begin to see yourself as generally capable rather than capable only in specific areas. This generalized confidence is far more powerful because it allows you to approach any new challenge with the belief that you can figure it out, even if you're currently inexperienced. When you systematically build confidence through these six components, something remarkable happens. Your confidence becomes independent of external circumstances, others' opinions, or temporary setbacks. You develop unshakable self-belief because it's built on a foundation of genuine evidence that you've accumulated through your own actions and achievements. This confidence becomes a core component of your personal power, allowing you to take on bigger challenges, influence more people, and create more significant results in every area of your life.